Hello, today I'll be doing a video on the game 1955, the War of Espionage. This came out in 2010. I think I got it 2012. I think I went to a Board Game Geek convention, I think 2012, and I think that's where I got it. They were giving it away as a door prize or something like that. Anyway, hadn't played it in 10 years at least. Pulled it out the other day and figured I'd do a video on it. So let's get started with how to set up. Alright, first thing you'll do is lay out the board. Next you'll place the 6 control markers and 2 spies somewhere next to the board. Choose whatever player you wish to be your start player. This is a 2-player game, by the way. Choose a start player. That start player will shuffle this deck of cards and then place it somewhere near the board where both players can draw cards. Each player then draws 5 cards to form their starting hand. So this is for player 1. Now normally one player would sit on this side of the board and one player would sit on this side of the board. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to have my second player over here since that's a window and I can't have anybody sitting over there. So anyway, 5-card hand for the other player. Alright. The starting player will look at his hand and look at the cards he has and determine which country he wants to be his home country. So in this case, just because we've got 2 French flags, we'll say that this player decides he wants to be the starting country to be France, which is the blue faction, so he'll take the blue spy and put his spy on his starting country of France. Now of course I've got my cards laid out here. You wouldn't do that, you keep your cards hidden from your other player, but since I'm doing this solo, I'm just going to have mine laid out like so. He'll then take a control marker that matches the faction color that he chose and place that on the center space of his country, like so. The player that was not the starting player then looks at their cards and they have to choose a starting country that belongs to a faction that is not the same as the start player. So in this case, it would have this player would probably have liked to taken the United States as their home country, but since that's a part of the faction chosen by the start player, they have to choose a country that does not belong. So it looks like they'll have to either choose the USSR or Poland, and we'll just say they're going to choose the USSR. So they will take their spy, place it on their home country, and take the matching control marker and place it on the center space of their track. Then the players can just place the neutral control markers on the other 4 country spaces in the center of the board, like so. Then the players get to advance the control marker of their country 1 space toward their side of the board. There are player aid cards. Each player can get one of those. And with that, we finish setup, and now we'll move on to how to play. Alright, there is one more step that's kind of part of the setup, but it's also really almost the first turn of the game. It's called the opening move, and it's where the start player kind of takes a partial turn. So we'll come back to that after we go over how a standard turn works. So let's talk about a standard turn. On a standard turn, you'll make 2 card plays, then you'll refill your hand back up to your hand size, which is normally 5 but can be increased, and we'll talk about how that takes place later. And then after you do that, you will have the opportunity to move your spy to a different country if you wish to. So let's talk about the different types of card plays. So there's several different types of cards, but the most common type is a country card like this that has a country flag. And most of these cards that you have will have a special action that you can do for a card play. So for instance, this one, at the end of your turn after refilling your hand, but before moving your spy, draw 2 additional cards. So you can play a card for its special action, and that's a card play. Now some cards will have a special action that say this does not count as a card play. For example, this one, you can play it on anybody's turn, either yours or your opponent's turn. You can move your spy to any country, and this does not count as a card play. So if you play that on your opponent's turn or on your turn, it doesn't count as one of your 2 card plays. But any card that doesn't will say so. Here's another example of a special action. If you play this card for a card play, your opponent must play with her hand face up on the table until the end of their next turn. So again, just various special actions. So you can play a card, one of your card plays, you can play a card for its special action, or the other thing you can do is play a card for its influence action. So when you play a card for its influence action, you look at the flag on there, and then this is the number of influence that you can move that control marker towards your side of the board if you play it for that country. So in this case, France, if we played this card for one of our card plays for its influence action, we could move the France marker 2 spaces, since it's got 2 strength, towards our side of the board. If your spy is also in the country that you're playing that card for, like this one, since we're playing France and our spy is in France, you can then add 1 to that number, so that would make that a 3, so I could move it 3. Or if your spy is in that country, instead of adding 1 to that number, you can combine it with another card of the same country and use the total. So I could move that 5 then. So I would be able to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a little better than just playing the 1 card and adding 1. So again, when you play a country card, you can move the influence marker that many spaces toward for that country toward your side of the board. If your spy is also in that same country, you can either add 1 to the number on the card, or you can combine it with another card and move it the combined value of both those cards. This is probably a good time to talk about another type of card that you might have, and that's a mercenary card. You can always add a mercenary card with any card that you're playing, or any country card that you're playing for its influence, to add to that total. So if you were just playing a single card with your spy, in that country, you would move 2 plus 1, and you could add a mercenary card and add an additional one. Or if you were instead playing a combined cards, you can also add a mercenary card to that, and so you would end up moving it a total of 6 instead of 5. So you can always add a mercenary card to a country card that you're playing for influence. Cards that you play then go into the discard pile. When you combine cards, that still only counts as 1 card play. That doesn't, because you're using 2 cards, combining them, that doesn't count as both your card plays for your turn. That still counts as 1 card play. And again, you can only combine cards if the country you're playing those cards for are the same country that your spy is in. Now you could play this card that is not where your spy is. For instance, this is Hungary, so you could play this card for Hungary with an influence of 2. And even though your spy isn't there, you can still move it 2 spaces toward your side of the board. But since your spy is not there, you don't get to add +1, and you don't get to combine cards. Even if you had another Hungary card in your hand, you couldn't combine it since your spy is not in that country. You can also play a card to a country that your spy is in, even if the flag does not match. For example, if your spy is in the USSR, you could play this Poland country card because your spy is there and still advance 2 spaces towards your side of the board. Now, if you're playing a country card where your spy is, whose faction is different, for example, my spy is in USSR, I can play this France country card to move the marker since my spy is there, but because it is from a different faction, it's from the blue faction, and the country I'm playing it in, where my spy is from the red faction, it gets -1 to its value, so it would only get to advance the marker 2. If it's of the same faction, like I just showed a minute ago with the Poland, then you get the full value of the card. But again, you can only do that if your spy is there. Another way to play influence cards is to, or influence actions from cards, is to play them in your home country. That's the one with the colored cube that matches your faction, the home country you chose at the beginning of the game. And it works similarly to playing a card where your spy is. So you can play a card to your home country that doesn't match the same country. So if I wanted to play this card for France, which is, the blue color, the blue spy's home country, I'm not playing a France country card, but I can play it to my home country, although just like with the spy, if it's a different faction, like this is the red faction, it gets -1 to the value. So if I played this card to my home country, if it would only have a value of 1, I would only get to advance 1 on the track. Whereas if I played this one, that is the same faction as my country of France, the blue faction, I would get the full 3 value and get to advance 3 on the track. 1, 2, 3, so forth. So, just to recap, if you play a country card on the country that matches the flag, you get the full value. If your spy is there, you can add 1 to that value, or add another card of another country card of the same country and combine them for their total value. And for any of these plays, if you have a mercenary card, you can add that to add to that total as well. You can also play a country card to a country where your spy is in. As I mentioned, the flag does not have to match. But if it's, and you get the full value, but if it's of a different faction, you have to subtract 1 from the value. And the same thing for your home country. You can play any country card there and get the value shown. But if it's of a different faction, then you have to subtract 1 from the value of that card. So just another note on mercenary cards. I said you could add them to country cards that you're playing, how we just talked about, to increase their value. You can play any number of mercenary cards with, with another country card. So, if I was playing this one for Poland, I could add this mercenary card. If I had another one, I could add it as well. So any number of mercenary cards can be added to other country cards you're playing. But also, you can just play a mercenary card to any country you want for its value. And it has no faction, so it doesn't matter. So if I wanted to play this card to move the USA 1 toward mine, I could. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned is that when you're making your card plays for influence actions to move these control markers, your opponent can possibly have the opportunity to block the cards you play. So, For example, we'll say the blue player, played this Poland card for a value of 2 to move the Polish marker 2 spaces toward their side of the board. Now, if their opponent's spy is in Poland, then they have the opportunity to block. So if their spy is there, they have the opportunity to block, and they can block playing any cards that match the faction of the country that you're moving the control marker. So the Poland is the red faction, so if this player spies in Poland, he can play any red faction cards to block that move. Now he has to play at least a total of the amount that you're moving. So since I'm playing a total of 2 value, he would have to play at least a value of 2. If I had thrown my mercenary card on here and I was moving Poland 3, then he would not be able to just play this 2 value card to block me because I'm moving 3. You can't partially block. You have to play at least the total amount that your opponent is playing in influence. So he would have to play another card. Well, he could just play this one card. Again, it just has to match the faction, not the country. And then even though it's for a higher value, at least it matches the value. So it has to match the value or be higher. And then he would block me from making that move. But again, you can only do that if the country, if the opponent has their spy in the country where you're playing an influence action, they have the opportunity to block. Now, one other way they can block is that if they are trying to move the faction of your home country. So if the blue player here, he's got his spy in the same country as the home country of the red player, since his spy is there, he can play any card. It doesn't have to. He doesn't have to have the country flag of that country. Say so. For instance, he was going to play this French influence card because the spy is there, but it doesn't match the faction. It gets -1, so he would be able to move it 2 toward his side of the board. But because that is the home country of the red player, even though their spy isn't there, they can play a card of that same faction to block that. So he could play this card that's of the same faction to block that. Or because it was only a value of 2, he could play this one and block that. And then it's not moved. But all the cards that are played are then put in the discard pile. So the cards that are used to block and the card that was played, and even though it didn't get to move the control marker, it's still discarded. And one thing I forgot to mention, if you're blocking where your spy is, I said that if your spy is there, you could play cards to block of the same faction. But if you actually play a card of the same country to block with, it gets each card played of the same country gets +1 to its influence value. So if the blue player was playing this Poland flag to move the marker 2, and this guy has his flag or his spy in Poland, he could play this one, which the 2 would block it anyway because 2 for 2. But if he had used a mercenary to make this 3, normally he wouldn't be able to play this. But because it does match the flag of where he's playing his card, he gets +1. So this one is a value of 3, which would block. And again, you can only do that if your spy. You only get the +1 if your spy is there. You don't get that +1 bonus if they're moving the control marker of your home country if your spy is not there. You only get it if your spy is there. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, you can play cards for their special action or for their influence action. You normally can't block special actions, but there are some cards that say counter as their special action that lets you counter another special action. So your opponent does have some opportunities to block a special action being played as well. Alright, so going back to a player's standard turn, you can make 2 card plays. So playing cards as either a special action or for an influence action. You then, after you've made your 2 card plays, you then refill your hand, which I said is normally 5, but can be increased. And after you've refilled your hand, then you have the opportunity to move your spy, and you can move your spy to any other country. If you want to, you don't need to move it. You can move it. And then that ends your turn, and then it's your opponent's turn. So I had mentioned there's a way you can increase your hand size. So one type of card we haven't talked about is the Gadget Research card. So you'll see for its special action, it says put this card adjacent to a gadget, gain that gadget while this card is in play. So you'll see you've got 2 possible gadgets on the board. Now each player on their side of the board has the same. But if you wanted to play for your card play, this Gadget Research, you could slide it here under increase hand size by 1, and then for the remainder of the game your hand size is increased by 1, although there are some cards that will remove a gadget from an opponent, so it could be possibly removed by your opponent, but until it is, you can increase your hand size by 1. Another option is you can place a gadget under the advanced transport, which lets you discard to move once per turn. So you can do that during one of your card play steps. Step 1 and step 2 of the standard turn is to make a card play. So if you have an advanced transport, you can discard a card from your hand that shows a country, and that can be the destination country that you're moving your spy to. So like if this player decided to discard this Poland card, he can move his spy to Poland. Or if you're in a country and you discard a card of the country you're in, you can move your spy to any other country. So the card you discard for advanced transport can either have the flag of the country you're moving to, or it can have the flag of the country you're departing from, and then you can move your spy to any other country. And just to mention, the discarding of the card to move is not your card play. You still get to make a card play. That's just an optional thing you can do once per turn. So that's how you'll end up moving these control markers through special actions or influence actions during your card play. Whenever a control marker gets moved into the star space, it's considered secure and can't normally be moved by your opponent by using normal special actions or normal influence. Once it's secured, it's locked. However, there is a type of card we'll see here called Revolution, that its special action lets you advance the control marker of any country 2 spaces and may be applied to a secured marker. And it says this may not be blocked. So if the card Revolution can allow a secured control marker to be moved back out of the secured spot, but otherwise, normally, once it's secured, regular influence actions and regular special actions that move an influence control marker can't move one out of a secured spot. So you'll continue to play, taking turns until one player has secured 3 countries. If a player secures 3 countries before the other player, then they're the winner. Or if a player manages to secure the home country of their opponent, then they are also the winner. So if you can do that, even if you haven't secured a total of 3 countries, if you do secure the control marker of your opponent's home country, then you immediately win the game. So it's either secure any 3 countries or secure your opponent's home country and you win. So I just wanted to loop back real quick, and I mentioned right after the setup, I said kind of a portion of the setup was called opening move, but it's really like the first turn of the game, and it's pretty much the first player, the start player, taking the first turn of the game, but instead of getting to make 2 card plays, they only get to make 1 card play. And then it goes to the second player, and from that point forward it's standard turns where they get to make 2 card plays and refill their hand and move their spy. So in the opening move, the first player, the start player, makes a single card play, then refills their hand, and then moves their spy if they wish. And then from then on, starting with the second player until somebody wins, it's standard turns where you get to make 2 card plays. Alright, and that's it for how to play. So I think I've already got everything set back up to how it was right after setup. The players have their same 5 cards that we drew at the beginning. I've got the control markers back where they should be right after setup. So we'll go through a few example turns. Alright, so first turn of the game will be taken by the start player. Now I did want to mention during setup, I said the start player will look at their hand of cards and then decide which they want to be their home country, and then the other player will choose their home country. And I looked and I saw that I had 2 French cards in my hand and decided that should be my home country. That may not be the best option because France, of course, is one of the shortest tracks, so that's one of the... Of course, it's easy for you to get it secured, but it's also more easy for your opponent to get secured. So I don't know, maybe one of the longer track countries is better to choose. But however you think best. I'm only played this game a few times. I certainly don't know the best strategies. Anyway, back to our first turn of the game. It's the first player, so that because it's the opening move, they only get to make 1 card play. So, they're going to play Supply Drop. They're going to play these cards for influence action. Because their spy is there, they can combine it with another card, so they'll do that. And they'll go ahead and throw their mercenary card on there, so that will be a total of 6. My opponent cannot block my play because they don't have their spy in France, and France is not their home country. So that's my play of 6, so I get to advance at 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've already secured my home country. I just need to secure 2 more countries to win. Alright, that only counts as 1 card play, but that's all I get in the opening move. So now I'll refill my hand. So my hand size is 5, so I'll draw 3 cards into my hand. And then I have the opportunity to move my spy if I wish. And I think I'm going to move my spy to Poland, just because I notice I've got 2 Poland cards. Alright, we come to our second player. They have 3 USA cards, but they are not in the USA, so although they could play 1 USA card if they wanted to advance 3, they can't combine the cards because their spy is not there. Their spy would have to be in the USA in order to combine 2 cards. You couldn't combine all 3 anyway, but they could combine those 2 3s if their spy was there, but because their spy's not there, they can't combine a card. Why don't we play a special action just to see how that works. We're going to play that revolution and advance the control marker of any country 2 spaces, and it may be applied to a secured control marker. So they're going to advance this France, and now it is no longer secured because we used this special action to to move that. So now we discard that. That's only one card play. We still have another card play. So I think we're going to play this for the influence. You know, we could use it for the gadget to increase our hand size or do the advanced transport, but it's got 4 influence, so if we play it for an influence action in our home country and where our spy is, it will be worth 4, and because our spy is there, it's actually worth an additional 1, so it would be worth 5. So we're going to do that, and we advance the marker 5. We discard this. That is our 2 card plays, so now we'll draw back up to our hand size, which is 5, so we got to draw 2 cards into our hand. Then we have the opportunity to move our spy if we wish. Because we do have these 2 USA cards, I think we are going to move our spy to the USA, and that will end that player's turn. Alright, our spy is in Poland, so we can play these. Since our spy is there, we can combine cards, so we're going to play these 2 Poland cards. That will allow us to move 4. Our opponent's spy is not there, and it's not their home country, so they're not able to block that. So we will discard those, and we will move the marker 4. Now we could have added this mercenary card to that and moved that 6 if we wanted to, but I think what we're going to do is just play this mercenary card, and that can count, that can be played anywhere for its value, and we're going to play it for 2 in France to resecure France. Now we draw back up to our hand size, which is 5, so we got to draw 3 cards. And now we get to move our spy. We know that he's going to, or we assume because he moved to the USA, that he's going to try to move the USA marker. So I think we're going to move to the USA to see if we can block whatever he does. So we'll say that this player does, because his spy's in the USA, he plays 2 USA cards, and he's going to move the for an influence action and move the marker 5. But because the blue player's spy is there, they can see if they're able to block that. They would have to play cards of the same faction with a total of 5 or greater. And if they're playing a card with the matching country flag, they get to add 1. So they've got 1, which has the same country flag, so that would make that worth a total of 3. This could be played with it for a total of 4, but unfortunately they don't have any other blue faction cards, so they don't have enough to block it, so they're not going to be able to block. So this player will get to advance this 5. And then these cards are discarded. That's 1 card play. They have another. So I think for our second card play, we're going to play this one. Now we could use this one to advance the UK 4, but because our spy is here, we can use it because it's the same faction as the USA. We can use it to advance the USA 4. We could play a card that doesn't match the faction where my spy is to advance it for its value, but it would be -1 if it didn't match. But because this one does match the faction and my spy is there, I can play this for the USA and advance it 4. Now, again, this guy would have a chance to block that, but as we saw just from the last card play, he doesn't have an opportunity to block a value of 4. Well, wait a minute. He did, because if he's going to block, since it matches the country is playing where his spy is, now he can block because his spy is there, and because this matches the country where the spy is, it gets to add 1, so that's 3, and then he has a mercenary card for a total of 4. So he will get to block that. So we'll move this back up 4. Alright, So he had a successful block, and now all these cards get discarded. He'll refill back up to his hand size, so he needs 3 cards. And then can move their spy if they want to. But I think, let's see. Well, yeah, I think they're going to move their spy back to USSR. Alright, we'll do a couple more turns. So we're back to the blue player. Yeah, he's only got 3 cards because he used 2 of his to block. So maybe he plays this card for its special action. Discard your hand, refill it by drawing cards equal to your hand size. So he's going to discard all 3 of these, refill, draw it by drawing 5 cards. Now he's used one of his card plays, but he still has one more. So we'll just show another special action. Maybe he wants to play this coordinated attack special action. It says advance up to 2 unsecured control markers, 1 space each. This advance may not be blocked. But you'll see it has this special ability down here. On an opponent's turn, you can play this to counter a coordinated attack. So if my opponent over here happened to have one of those cards, a coordinated attack card, he would be able to counter the one I'm playing, but he does not. So we'll just play this one to advance 2 unsecured control markers, 1 space each. So we'll advance the USA and the Russia, 1 space each. And then for our second card play, we'll just play this gadget research. Now we could play this to increase our hand size by 1 if we wanted to, but I would rather use to play it in Hungary for a value of 4. His spy is not in Hungary, nor is it his home country, so he can't block it, so we just get to move Hungary 4. That's going to end our turn. We refill to our hand size, which is 5, so we'll draw 2 cards. And then we can move our spy if we want to. And we've got 2 Hungary cards, so if our spy is there, we could combine those on our next turn, so maybe that's what we want to do. So we'll move our spy to Hungary. Alright, I think we'll play one of our cards, this card for Poland as an influence action, to move it 3. That he doesn't have a spy in Poland, nor is that his home country, so he can't block that, so we get to move it back up 3. So that's one of our card plays. For our second card play, I think we'll play this Russia or USSR card for a value of 3, and because our spy is there, we can add +1 to it. If we had another USSR card, instead of adding the +1, we could combine it, but we don't. So we'll just add the +1, so that'll move it 4. And we're getting close to securing our home country there. But that's now discarded. We get to draw back up to our hand size, which is 5, so that's 2 cards. We'll do one more play of each person. Oh, and this guy, I forgot he got to move his spy. He didn't do that, so we'll have him move his spy to Poland. Alright, we're back here. This guy, his spy is in Hungary, so he's going to combine 2 cards. He's going to combine these 2 Hungary cards for a total of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got that one secured. This guy couldn't block it because his spy is not there and it's not his home country. But maybe for his next play, he is going to try to play this one on the USSR to try to keep it from being secured. So he plays this card for its influence action for a total of 3, but because that is this player's home country, he can try to block it even though his spy isn't there. So he just has to use cards as of the same faction. So maybe he plays these two. They're both of the same faction. They're both red. The USSR is red where he's trying to play it. He's got, well, he doesn't have to play both because he's only playing a 3, so he only has to play one. So he plays this one, and he successfully blocks it because it's of the same faction. He can block because it's his home country. So that's that guy's second card play, and it was blocked. So now he'll refill his hand, and he can move his spy, and we'll just have him move his spy to the UK. Alright, it's our red player's turn. They only need 2 to advance their marker into secured for their home country. Now they don't have a card for their home country, but they can play an influence action in their home country with a card of any value. If it's got the same faction, it's the value shown. If it was from a different faction, it would have -1 to the value. But he does have this one for, from his same faction, so he can play that in his home country for a value of 2, and that's going to end up securing his home country. That's his 1 card play. And maybe he plays this one for its special action at the end of your turn after refilling your hand, but before moving your spy, draw 2 additional cards. So he plays that, and that's going to end his turn. So he's going to refill his hand. So he would draw normally 3 to refill his hand, but he gets to draw 2 additional cards because of that he just played. Those are all in his hand now, and then he gets to move his spy. So he's got several for the UK, so he'll move his spy to the UK. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I've given a good example of how the game plays. You can see this guy, the blue guy, is already a little bit closer than the red guy to winning. He's already got 2 countries secured. He just has to get 1 more secured, and he'll win. I don't think either one is going to be able to secure the other guy's country. I mean, because they've both already got them secured, and you'd have to play a card to, a revolution card to unsecure them and then get it moved all the way to the other side of the board, and that's an awful long trip for the USSR there. But anyway, this game, like I said, I hadn't played it in a long time. When I played it forever ago, I thought it kind of seemed like it was a Twilight Struggle light kind of game, kind of the same kind of ideas, playing cards for either their, well, in Twilight Struggle it's event, but in here it's special action, and in Twilight Struggle it's ops points, and in here it's influence points, but kind of the same. You're trying to influence countries to your side, but of course, obviously, Twilight Struggle has a lot more going on it than this does, but I just thought it had some similar ideas behind it anyway, so it's okay. It's kind of fun. I mean, obviously I don't love it, or I would have played it, sometime in the last 10 years or so, but my son had it. Maybe that's why I hadn't played it. I'd given it to my son, and he had it, and I just recently got it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.